Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy, man. We are excited for today. This whole week, we've been talking about body language and kind of really how we can read each other and gain more experience in a much quicker, shorter period of time. I reviewed on Monday the locker combination that we call it locker combination, but basically it unlocks communication with those that you're meeting with, and that is through 55% body language, 37 to 38%, depending on which study you're looking at metaverbals, which means the tone, the speed, the pitch, different things like that. And then also the last part is the verbal communication. We are not focusing on verbal communication because that is only 7 to 8% of what you're actually communicating to somebody. And that is really where we want to take a step back and say, okay, what are we communicating? And number one. Number two, what is being communicated to us? Now, the book I'm going to be reviewing today, What Everybody is Saying, is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, if you haven't read it, I'm going to put a link in the bottom here, but in the show notes, definitely go take a look at this book and read through it. It's only about 6 or 7 hours, and that's if you listen to it on like slow speed, normal speed. I listen to it on 2.5, so it's a little bit faster for me. But what's important to know is that this is going to give you, it's kind of a guidebook, and along with it, if you download it off of Audible, then you'll get the audiobook, and then you also get a PDF. And throughout the book, as he's describing these different movements or body structure, like body language poses, he's going to say, hey, look, this is when it's going to show up, this is why it's going to show up, and here's what it looks like. And he's created illustrations or in a PDF of all of these different things, and he's walking you through that so you can actually begin to test yourself, which is super important. You want to actually learn these things to read, right? It's not to read other people. Now, some people are thinking, man, I don't want somebody in my life and I don't want to get into somebody else's life that much. That's true. And I understand that. Maybe don't be predictive about it. And it's the classic coach, therapist, all of their problems, right? Police officers, no matter what situation they're in, it's really hard for them to put their profession behind them and just be present. But it's an essential skill that they all have to learn. And so they all learn how to really remove themselves from the situation and let their friends be their friends and not be processing their friends, not be always analyzing their friends or their family, whatever. They just step back and say, look, we're just family, we're just friends. I don't employ my profession in that setting. And same type of thing, right? You, in a professional setting, in a parenting setting, in a spousal setting, if you're wondering, hey, is my spouse being honest with me? If you're wondering if my kid's being honest with me, your teenager, if you're worried about some disrespect, but you're not sure how it got so bad, like how did your kid who started out as an angel get so disrespectful, right? Or your spouse or anything like that. If that's what you're curious about, then this book is for you, because this book really helps you understand the ins and outs and the nitty-gritty of communication, and specifically body language. So you can catch those body language things early on, because if we go back and think of us as from an evolutionary perspective, when we think of the kids, the people in our lives, well, even before that, if you go back to animals, okay, go watch a pack of dogs right after they're born play. For the first 8 weeks, they're going to be biting each other, they're playing, and they're identifying what's an appropriate behavior versus what's a non-appropriate behavior. And sometimes if they're doing things that are too out of line, then the mama dog will come in and set them straight. In our society, we've kind of removed that. When kids are playing and they're fighting, rather than letting them work it out, we've removed their ability to do that, and parents come in and protect them. And rather than parents enforcing rules, they come in and villainize the other party. And it just has to stop. And we have to get to a point where we can self-regulate and allow us, from an evolutionary perspective, to establish communication styles and to learn. And this is why a lot of people are struggling with these positions or these circumstances of disrespect. And it's because they are in a position, okay, they're in a position where they have not controlled that enough, not controlled the actual behavior in a way that they're producing the outcome they want. And then once you're 4 or 5 years into it, your children have established so much dominance in a household from a pure body language standpoint. And from a pure body language standpoint, whether you're aware or not aware, you've conceded that much authority to them. You've allowed them to have that much authority by the way you respond to them. And so this is absolutely essential in the process. Now in the book, they talk about where's the most honest part of body language? Where are you going to get the most information? What's going to be the biggest impact? I'm going to focus a lot on that because there's a lot in there, but I want to focus on where are you going to get the most impact. If all you learn from this episode is how to start reading this one simple area of somebody's body language, then you're going to be golden and you're going to have a hugely more success in business and family and all the situations if you just learn this one little thing. And then hopefully you guys are thrilled with that and decide to go and learn more because this really is a life-changing bit of information. Okay, so just think to yourself, what is the biggest indicator of body language? Okay, where are you going to get the most out of reading somebody's body language? What do you think that might be? Okay, I've heard at different times, well, your face, your eyes, those are so expressive, you can't hide things. Maybe your posture, whether you're slouching or standing up, twisted, and the way you orient yourself towards something. So there's all these different ideas of where you're going to get the most impact. But the truth is, where's the farthest place from your logical brain? Your feet. Your feet are the best indicator of how somebody's feeling towards you, towards a conversation, towards a question. And the reason this is because the feet, they establish the fight or flight response. They are the first thing that have to be ready in a fight or flight circumstance. And so how somebody's feet are oriented completely can be, well, it's one of the biggest tells to how somebody's engaging in the conversation. Now, that just because somebody has their feet oriented towards the door and you're talking to them, or oriented away from you, or crossed or whatever, it doesn't necessarily always mean specific things. What it does mean is they're checked out. They don't really want to be there. Now, why do they not want to be there? That's left up for you to find out. But what we do know is that they don't want to be there anymore. And so that's a very good cue of how they're focused on that. And it really is just all the way back to a biological freeze, flight, or flight response pattern. And you're going to find out, hey, what's happening. So let's say, and this is an example they use in the book and I love it. Let's say you walk into a group of people and there's maybe 2 or 3 clusters of people talking, and you walk up to one cluster and you introduce yourself, or they're your friends, right, in scare quotes, and they just rotate their torso towards you and they say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, it's nice to meet you. But they don't actually move their feet towards you. They don't actually open up their feet to allow you into the group. They just shift their torso. Well, if that's what's happening, then they're not really open to having you join their conversation. And that's okay. That's a quick thing where you can just look and say, okay, fair enough, on to the next cluster. Well, let's say then they do open up to you on the feet place, and then during that conversation, for whatever reason, they shift away from you. Well, that's a subconscious indication they're done with you being in their conversation. And so that's a huge thing to be looking at. How about crossing your legs? I tend to cross my legs a lot. And so it's interesting reading this book and understanding, okay, at what points am I crossing my legs? Why am I crossing my legs? On Facebook yesterday, I did it was like 20 minutes. I was a little bit on a soapbox, but about confrontation and about how do we establish a good rapport, but still have the confrontation we need so we can actually learn and grow and progress. And near the end of that video, I invited people, look, if you're not unwilling to confront other individuals because you're still too timid and too scared to do that, then at least confront yourself. At least start looking inside of yourself and wondering why you're doing the things that you do. Why do you respond the way you respond? And this book is helping me do that for myself. Why do I cross my legs? When I'm in a situation, why do I cross my knees, like my whole entire leg, not just my feet, but cross my whole entire leg? Why in some situations do I rest my feet on my chair or wrap them around the legs of the chair. All of these things, they're some of the best indicators of how somebody's feeling. And he makes a great point that in business situations, oftentimes we hide our feet from each other across from a desk so that nobody knows how we're acting. But there's a lot of signs based on, you can actually tell based on somebody's upper body how their feet are moving, based on how they're sitting and their upper body posture is. And so that's one thing, but he also just says, hey, maybe we should step away and not have a desk in between us so we can actually have an effective conversation. I learned this when I was doing a lot of interviews on my LDS mission, that how to sit in an interview style would be a 45-degree angle, both so you have an open way out, but just on two chairs, so you actually can see each other's full entire body language. So when you're doing an interview, you don't actually sit across the desk from each other because that's a weird power play, but you sit 45-degree angle. Then you can observe their whole aura, and then it's easier for you to get the indication of whether there's somebody that's going to be a good fit for your firm. Definitely in dating situations, you want to be able to make sure that you can see if you're out with your spouse or taking care of your kids, make sure you can see their whole body language, because it's going to give you a really good indication of their fight or flight responses. And then from that, once you recognize, oh, they're doing a fight response, they don't like that question and they're not ready to run. Okay, then what are they going to do? Oh, they're freezing right now. They're unsure of themselves. They're ready to run. They don't want to talk about this. All these different things, once you recognize that, then you can ease off on the conversation and then revisit it from a perspective of, just a second, my phone's ringing. Dumb phones. Yeah, so from a business perspective, if you can actually recognize their body language, then you can ease off on that close and then revisit it and to see if the same sign is showing up when you're asking a question around the same circumstance. So let's say you're dealing with your teenager, and your teenager is he was out late last night, okay, and you're wondering why, and so you ask questions about what he was doing, and you're just going through a list of stuff because you don't know what he's doing and he's not being honest with you. So you're asking questions about what he's doing, and once you ask a specific question, he closes up, he crosses his feet, he's starting to move in a gesture that is not there. Then you can shift the conversation, and then he'll open back up and then go back and touch that same point again and see if he closes up. If he's closing up, or if she's closing up, whatever, if your teenager is giving you those subconscious body cues, then you know, okay, this is probably the situation that we need to talk about. And then you can dig a little bit deeper and you can confront it from a position of kind of knowing what's going on, rather than just hoping that you're going to guess the right thing that your kid was out doing. And that is a huge skill that's super, super valuable if you learn this body language. I had to learn this a good portion when I did summer sales. When I would knock on a door, you have when somebody opens the door on door-to-door sales, you've got about 3 seconds, maybe 5 if you're really, really tip-top shape, for your body language to be inviting, caring, to display interest, all those things, but 2, to read their body language and adjust yours to match theirs. I mean, it's quick. You don't have a lot of time. So you have a preset that you're almost always going to be. Now, part of that's you're gonna base where you're standing and your body stance and stuff based on maybe the toys in the yard or the grass, whether it's cut or uncut, where the cars are parked, what type of cars they are. I mean, all those things you have to take into account based on how you're going to stand on their doorstep right when you knock on their door. But as soon as they open that door, it's really like 3 to 5 seconds you have to adjust how you're showing up for them and match it. Very, 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 very short amount of time. And the benefit of that, of learning these skills, is you get to learn a lot about somebody, and you get to learn how to have empathy in your body language, which is crucial. And it helps you be a better communicator in other things. There's many times when I get home and my wife doesn't have to say anything. My wife doesn't have to tell me that she's upset. I can tell by the way she walks. I can tell by the way she's sitting on the couch, her posture, the way her face looks, the way her arms are the gait in which, like the metaverbal, that 37 to 38% of communication, how she's talking to me, how long she's taking to answer, the tone of her, I can tell all of that stuff. I can tell there's a problem. I don't know what the problem is. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I just know, hey, look, there's something up and you need to give a little bit more attention to her right now versus doing whatever else is on your mind. And being able to understand that in such a short period of time has saved my wife and I from a significant amount of arguments. And so there are some times where I'm so hyper aware of these little tics that I will call it out. I was like, hey, honey, let's go have a chat. Sounds like we need to go have a chat for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on. And then she'll say, no, Sam, I don't want to talk about it right now. Stop embarrassing me in front of everybody. I'm like, oh, well, sorry. Like I just want to deal with this stuff as soon as it comes up. I don't want to wait to deal with problems between my wife and I, or problems in the day, or things she needs to get off her chest. I don't want to wait for that. I think that if we can move past things and confront struggle when they're smaller, then we're going to be a lot more successful before they ever become these big argument things that get in the way of having a healthy, loving relationship. And so that's a huge thing. Now, to put in perspective here, I'll tell you a time when I didn't get it. So I was doing some interviews of some of my clients to make a little video to show how my client, like things that were good with my clients, right? I'm doing this video and got 6 people there who are recording for me and willing to give testimonials. And I'm grateful for it. There's 3 of them that are just really on top of it. 3 or 4 of them that are really on top of it. They're happy. You can tell in their face that it was easy. And then there was another gentleman who the whole time he was shifting in his chair. He was rotating, right? So you could tell he was uneasy. His arms were like holding his hands. So he was protecting himself. And then his shoulders were a little bit up. So he was a little unsure. And then here's what I recognized at the time. I was like, this is weird. I don't know why he's responding this way. But his eyes, like you could see underneath his eyes, the little, almost just like self-doubt, or I'm saying this because I love Sam and I know something that he doesn't know. And so there's this little thing like, how can I say this and be believable? And I don't know that he recognized that, but I recognized that when it was happening. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, whatever, there must be something going on in his life and he's just feeling uncertain of himself today. I just walked away from it. Rather than confronting it, I walked away from it. Well, now 2 months later, I find out that that client was going through some financial stress or whatever, and the plan that we had set them up on from a financial perspective, they had discontinued with, but they hadn't told me yet. But this is what's crazy is I knew something was up. I just didn't think to chase it down because I was like, it's probably not my problem. Next time I won't be so naive. Next time I see something like that in an interaction with a client of mine, I'm going to talk about it right away because when it all came out and it's all said and done, the information that they wanted would have been very easy to get. It just didn't, I didn't have the opportunity to do it because I wasn't aware enough. And so that's on me. I got to take full ownership for that to make sure that people get the information they need and that they feel more comfortable coming to me. But it's those little things that you can recognize, and it's up to you as a professional, as a spouse, as a mother, father, business partner, whatever it is, to make adjustments and make sure that you actually are able to help and add as much value to your client. It's not about manipulation. Sometimes people will see this and they're like, Sam, you want to learn all this stuff just to manipulate people, just to change who they are. I'm like, no, I don't like liars. I don't like lying myself. And so if I can help somebody make a decision, that's great. But if they make a verbal decision, but the rest of themselves didn't make a decision, that means they made 7% of a decision. They didn't make 100% decision. I want 100% decision from my clients. I want 100% decision from my wife, from my children, from my business partners. So if somebody's not making 100% decision, then it's my job to know about it and help them either get the information they need so they can, or to invite them not to make the decision yet, because a 7% decision is not a good decision, right? You don't want to coerce somebody into marrying you. You don't want to coerce somebody into being your business partner. Look, if they don't want to be your business partner, it's the last thing you want to be a business partner with somebody who doesn't want to be a business partner business partner with you or a client, like I'm very direct with my clients in most cases. And so that's just something that I've learned. So I can absolutely see how this book and learning more about this from a tactical standpoint is going to absolutely change the way I do my business and the way I'm able to serve and help and bless the lives of my clients. And I know that it will help you guys as well as you really put the effort into learning this. And I mentioned this on Monday, but it really is, it's going to be like driving a stick shift car, right? When you first learn to drive a stick shift car, there's so many things that are going on that you're very, very confused. You're trying to just shift gears, match the gas and the clutch, and make sure that you're not putting too much gas and popping the clutch and all these different things. But after you've been driving for a few months, maybe a year, it's so subconscious of action that you don't even think about it, but you're an expert driver, okay? And that is where I know that you guys can get to with this body language. That's where I know I can get to. And so it's something that I'm going to be working on constantly to make sure that I'm putting forth my best effort to become my best self so that I can serve and love and bless those around me to my fullest potential. I refuse to accept that something just happens without me being able to affect it. I want to take complete ownership of my life. And so to do that, I'm committed to making sure and engaging in the fact that I can actually read people. I can actually understand what their needs are. And the more I understand that, then the more I'm going to be able to serve and say, look, yeah, this is not for you, or this is for you, based on how their body language is. And so that's something that I'm working on. But I just wanted to let you know, this book is going to change your life. I'm going to touch on one last thing in the next few minutes here, and that is your arms. Okay, arms are another huge, huge indicator of how somebody feels. When we're uncomfortable or we're feeling like we're unsure of a situation, or we are going into a fight or flight response, we're going to curl up and protect ourselves. We're going to protect our torso. We're going to protect these different areas of our body because we don't want to get touched. And our arms are there to protect us. They're there to ward off any potential pain. And basketball, I think, is one of the best examples of this. Basketball, their arms are very wide and open most of the time in their basketball. Even when they're dribbling the ball, they're commanding a lot of space with their arms and saying, look, this is my area, don't touch it. Well, when we feel like we're being attacked, we curl up a lot of times. Like the flight response, the freeze or flight response, is to curl up and to avoid that confrontation, or at least protect ourselves from that. So if you're seeing people, whether it's children, business partners, colleagues, different things, when you walk into the room or you see an interaction between one person and another person, you see that and you see them kind of recoil, then maybe just think about, okay, why is that happening and how can we fix that? Especially if they're recoiling to you, then that's something you need to be aware of, man, because oftentimes we aren't even aware of what's going on. We aren't aware that we're actually hurting from an emotional, mental, whatever standpoint. We're just going about our lives, and as a natural consequence, we can be offensive to people just because we have opinions and maybe they don't like our opinions. But if you're able to recognize that, then you might actually be able to come to a unified decision faster, because you can see, okay, who in this situation doesn't believe what I'm saying and who does believe what I'm saying. And then you can address the concerns of those who aren't on board yet a lot quicker and a lot faster. And so definitely look at that. And then the one last thing is, I mentioned earlier about children and helping them learn respectful postures or learn to respect you. One of the things that it talks about in this book is a young child, when they're being rebellious, they're going to sprawl out all over the couch, the floor, whatever. And if we allow that, it's a massive display of disrespect. From a body language standpoint, it's a massive display of disrespect. And if we allow that massive display of disrespect to continue, then by the time they're older, we've given them so much body language, we've consented so much to their disrespect and that they're allowed to disrespect us, that we have no control, right? And then we're stuck with these teenagers who are way out of control and thinking, how can we possibly regain control of this? It's really difficult because you've just created years of telling them it's okay for them to body languagely abuse you. And so you have to be, this book will help you understand how can you curb that, right? Without directly forcing them, holding them into a respectful position, but how can you move into a situation or a position that's going to encourage them to get up and have more respect for you. And as you do that from a body language perspective, even though they may be saying all the right words right now, when you start to shift their body language into a respectful position, then that's going to give the most credence to creating children and ultimately adults who understand and respect their elders, respect the people around them. So that's just a few simple things from this book. But for me and my business, hopefully I've given you a good idea of how I'm going to be using this information and how it's going to change the way I do business and the way I interact with people, because it's absolutely, it's just mind blowing. And honestly, there's so much in there. I'm going to re-listen to this book 2 or 3 times and be studying these body language poses, because it's so crucial to be able to serve and love and bless my client to my fullest ability. So that is the podcast for today. But I do want to share with you, if you are loving this information and you can see value in sharing this with other people, if you know somebody who's struggling with communication, if you know somebody who just doesn't like to talk to people, if you know somebody who's struggling with sales or anything like that, please share this podcast with them. Tag me in it and I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. But please share this podcast with them, because you deserve to have this information, and you deserve for those around you to be educated so they can also better their lives. And I know that this book is going to help you do that. And ultimately, this whole podcast, Fuel Your Legacy, is specifically targeting the habits, mindsets, and behaviors necessary and essential in creating a meaningful legacy, something that's going to last multi-generationally. And that's really what I'm focused on, is helping you accomplish your legacy. Whatever that is for you, I want to help you accomplish that. So please take a screenshot, tag me in it, and I will give you a shout out here on the podcast. And we will catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.